My name is Cynthia Gabriel from SUARAM, and together with my Scorpene committee, some of them are at the back and at the side, we are actually very happy to be the invited guests at the Pakatan Rakyat Scorpene Submarine Scandal Public Forum. I understand from the organizers that the hall will be very full later, because today is actually the Mid-Autumn Lantern Festival, and a very significant day actually for the Chinese community, because the whole message of the Mid-Autumn Lantern Festival is also a message of courage, a message of change, and a message in which we bring today to the public forum. You also very rightly themed the forum, the Great Malaysian Robbery. Now, I would like to tell you why this is one of the greatest Malaysian robberies you may have ever experienced in the country's history. It involves huge amounts of money, huge amounts of bribery, of kickbacks, of commissions, in which our current administration has been alleged to be involved in. And there is an inquiry that is currently ongoing. And I think you guys, all of you are here because you want to hear more. You may have read a little bit of it in Malaysia Kini, you may have read some information in Haraka, and so on and so forth. But before I proceed, I just want to say that it's also a pleasure to be the only non-YB sitting on this table as a panel of speakers, because normally at Pakatan Rakyat Ceramas, it can be quite hard to get into a speaker's slot if you're not an elected representative. So we're happy to be here. SUARAM is very happy to be in Ipoh and to be able to speak to the civil society and the citizens of Ipoh, mainly because we feel that Perak will be an important state in the coming general elections. The way in which you vote, the way in which you had to deal with a crisis that no other state had to deal with, which was the robbery in which the power exchange happened between Pakatan Rakyat and the Barisan Nasional right after the 2008 general election. So we're speaking to a very special audience here. You know what it means to actually have power taken away from you. You know what it means to have corruption and abuse of power really thrown at your face. And this will actually help us contextualize the issue of the Scorpene Scandal in a much more important and serious way as we face the coming general elections. So let me begin. I will actually divide my time. How long do I have? 20 minutes? Okay. First, to give you a little bit of a background on the Scorpene case. What is it? Why are we here today to listen to the details? The latest developments, which I think many of you are actually here to hear. And then, related to that, in the last couple of weeks, there have been incessant attacks on SUARAM, the organization that has filed the case in the French courts. It's very important to also understand if there is a link between the attacks on SUARAM and the Scorpene case that is being heard currently in France. And finally, to also make some very important thank yous for the generous support that we have received both financially and materially and spiritually and intellectually and resourcefully from all the people in Perak, in Ipoh, and in all other parts of Malaysia. Okay, let me begin, since I've been told that the time is really quite short. If I can bring your attention to this chart. Off and on, you look at it. Don't look at it all the time, because you need to look at me as well. You just pay attention to this, because this is a very good summary of what we're talking about. Like the moderator said just now, this is a very complicated criminal investigation which is going on in France at the moment. And it involves Malaysia in a very big way. Okay? In April of 2010, SUARAM filed a judicial complaint before the French courts. Why did we do that? And what was the complaint about? The complaint was about the 114.9 million euro that was paid out to this company called Perak. Go down. Okay, so this was the focus of the complaint, the euro 114.96, which amounts to about 570 million ringgit. Okay, it was paid out to this company called Perak. Now we found out that Perak was established just to accept this money, and it's a huge amount of money. It's 500 million ringgit. And the description for the money was that it was for commission and support services. So many of our good YBs in Parliament have actually asked the Defence Ministry to explain repeatedly what this money was paid out for. But they got no concrete answers. They got no direct answers. So as a result of that, SUARAM had also met the MACC, and we had requested that it was very, very important for MACC to open a case, to open an investigation into what that money was spent for. No response from MACC, no response from Parliament. And worst of all, we are actually governed by an Official Secrets Act in Malaysia, which means all the contracts and the important documents that were signed between France and Malaysia are kept totally secret. So what do we do? And about this time, the Al-Tantuya Sharibu trial also ended. Do we remember how it ended? Do we recall? Was anybody implicated? We had two policemen who were charged for the murder of the Mongolian woman, but we had absolutely no idea what were their motives. Instead, the chief person who was alleged to have been involved in her murder was actually acquitted, and he ran away, and he's been living in London since, doing his PhD and having a good life. So, were there more questions than answers at that point? Did we have any answers about how 570 million of our taxpayers' money was used to pay a company with no accountability, no answers from Parliament, no answers from MACC, and so on and so forth? So what SUARAM decided to do, we just did something out of the box. We just thought, okay, let's take it out, let's try and launch a report in France. And friends, I'll tell you now, we never expected that it would go anywhere. Who are we after all? We're a small human rights NGO in Malaysia, which is like 13,000 miles away from France. But to our surprise, to our shock actually, we found out that the initial complaint that was filed was pursued by the public prosecutors in France, and they found that it was not just the 114.9 million euro that was questionable, but they found that there were more commissions that were paid out to various companies, including Terasasi, which is a Malaysian company, which was founded in Malaysia and then they opened a branch in Hong Kong, and through various third countries. You have companies like GFEN, which is based in Malta, Technoma in Belgium, and Eurolux in Luxembourg. These are only some of the evidence and the documentation that the public prosecutor found. This is not a story concocted by SUARAM. This are evidence found by the public prosecutors in France. Now, what were these three countries doing? Why were they involved in the Scorpene Scandal? Now, let me tell you that in 2002, when the Malaysian government signed the contract, there was a very important convention that France signed. It's the OECD convention, which is an anti-bribery convention. So France had signed the convention, which means that their public officials are no longer able to take kickbacks and bribes. Before it used to be a norm, before it used to be a practice. But after 2002, France's hands were tied. They were internationally obligated. So the shipbuilding company, which is a GRC that was involved in the whole negotiation, decided we can still do it via third countries. So they chose, pretty small countries in the Mediterranean and also other European countries like Luxembourg and Belgium to make the payments. And in the hands of the public prosecutor and now the judge, they actually have evidence of some receipts and payments that were made, including some travel invoices and tickets of persons who are based in Malaysia and the key negotiator involved in the whole submarine project. And his name is Abdul Razak Baginda. And he had traveled to a few locations with Atantuya Sharibu. What was her role in the whole procurement process is something that has left many questions. Was she an interpreter? Did she have a bigger role in the whole process? We have no clues. But fast tracking, because I see the moderator is already looking at me, fast tracking a bit, in 2012, this year in March, the public prosecutors had proven a prima facie case to the higher courts that this case deserves a bigger inquiry. This case deserves a judge, two judges actually. Two judges were appointed to make further investigations. And so a deepened inquiry at the Tribunal de Grande Instance is now being conducted. Now, the minute we announced that, and a couple of months later when we announced the fact that a Malaysian was going to be subpoenaed, within a few weeks the authorities started coming after SUARAM. Now we have been in existence for the last 23 years. We have done many human rights cases. We have always been with odds with the government who never quite supported the agenda of human rights. But they had never attacked an NGO the way they are attacking us now. Right now, we have 6 different government agencies chasing after us, trying to build a case that we are running an illegal organization, that there could be money laundering issues, and they have gone to the streets. TV3 has been promoting the anti-SUARAM agenda like as if we are the most important thing in the country at the moment. What happened to our growing national debt? What happened to all the corruption issues? What happened to poverty? What happened to all the different things that deserve public attention? Instead, they are trying to divert the attention of the Scorpene case by attacking SUARAM. And I just want to quote something that Ambiga, the chairman of BERSE, actually said at a press conference. The more you try to kill the messenger, the message just keeps getting louder. And I think all of you, here are discerning Malaysians. All of you here are people who look for alternative channels of information. You don't just watch TV3 or read Utusan Malaysia and are satisfied, because we know that there's so many lies that are spun over and over again. So I appeal to you that if you're not someone who actually looks at alternative media to get information, it is really time to do that. Because a lot of what is concocted in the mainstream media can no longer be believed. And I'll tell you why. Because the number of exposés, the number of press conferences that we had on this case had zero coverage in the mainstream media between the months of March and June. While at the same time, you got Haraka, Malaysia Kini, Malaysian Insider, and so on, hitting the headlines. And I think one more very important thing to say that never got coverage in the mainstream media was the fact that our lawyer, this is also not coming from SUARAM, because it was an information that was too huge to handle, that our lawyer, Joseph Graham, when we had a joint press conference in Bangkok. Why did we have a joint press conference in Bangkok? It's because our lawyers are also banned from coming into Malaysia. I think you will remember that one of them got deported in July last year. Why would the government want to deport a lawyer if there was really nothing to hide? Anyway, one of the very, very important pieces of information that was revealed was that there was a secret high-level document that could have been very, very suspiciously sold to a French shipbuilding company in order that they would adjust their proposal to be able to get the contract with the Malaysian government. And that document was linked with a 142 million euro payment to that company, to the company called Teratasi that you saw just now. So, what was the 142 million euro paid for? Was it for the document, or was it for something else? There are no answers that are actually being provided. And when YB Nurul Izzah actually made an ucapan penangguhan at the last parliamentary session, I don't think there was much coverage of this, but the defense minister had actually wholesale denied that there were other companies apart from Perak. Okay, so he denied Teratasi, but the public prosecutors had actually found that there were several payments made to Teratasi. And who is the director of Teratasi? It is the father of Razak Baginda. Who is the director of Perak? It is the wife of Razak Baginda. So he has brought his entire family and made an empire out of the whole procurement process of just 2 French submarines. So we're looking at a very major corruption scandal here, friends, and it involves some very high personalities. Now, the highest personality that I haven't mentioned yet is not our defense minister now, but our defense minister at the time when the contract was signed. Who was our defense minister at that time? Okay, you said it, not me. Okay, so if they come for the Sedition Act, not answer, you said it, not me. But the important thing is, because he is our current Prime Minister. Now, how can the head of state continue to rule without answering the people of Malaysia what actually happened? SUARAM is not accusing him of anything, but SUARAM has just merely facilitated a very important process in which many answers need to be provided to the people of Malaysia. And we are at a very crucial time. We are at the tipping point for change, because the general elections is around the corner. In fact, the general election was supposed to happen last year, but we're still waiting for it, and they keep delaying it, and they keep delaying it. But one of the issues that we must put forward as ordinary Malaysians is the issue of corruption. We have to put it to both Barisan Nasional, we have to put it especially to our Prime Minister to answer this question. And it's not just this corruption scandal. You remember the Lembu corruption issue, right? Were there any answers? No. And there are many more. But we also need to impress upon our Pakatan Rakyat comrade that Rasuah is a major issue that deserves the commitment of every elected representative. And we can no longer live in a society that breeds corruption. I think Malaysians are at this point where we are ready to say that we want a government that is free of corruption. Free of corruption might be very difficult. But we are also very happy to see that in the Pakatan Rakyat budget, there was mention that with reduced corruption, we could save, how many percent? 29 or 26, I remember. Yeah. And examples are actually already there before us. Look at how Penang is being administered. Look at how Selangor is being administered. Now there are problems, without a doubt there are problems, but it becomes really important that we can actually move towards a society that does not believe that corruption has a place anymore. So finally, also I know that time is really running out, we would really like to say a big thank you on behalf of SUARAM and the Scorpene team to many of our friends in Ipoh for their generous contributions, and especially a special mention to Mr. Koon, who I believe is in the audience. Can you please stand up? Who has, thank you Mr. Koon. I think we'll be saying many more thank yous after this. To the rest of you who might want to generously contribute to the Scorpene Fund. Why are we raising money? Mr. Koon has set an extremely important example for Malaysians that are in important and well-resourced places to actually contribute generously to the work of anti-corruption and human rights. And in this case, SUARAM has already committed itself to a French process and an inquiry that could take a couple of years before we finally see the end result. So we will continue to need to pay our French lawyers. And as much as they are like one of the best lawyers in France, they also charge us a lot of money. For them, they're charging us reduced rates, but every month we have to pay 3,000 euro just to keep the file open. 3,000 euro is about 12,000 plus ringgit a month. As a small NGO, we can never do it without your help. So Mr. Koon, thank you again. We deeply appreciate it. And to each and every one of you, thank you, because we know that there will be a lot more contributions